Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BTB Movie Club podcast. My name is Ryan Malo. We hope you enjoyed today's movie discussion. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the BTB Movie Club. My name is Tim Larson. We are here with six of us today. Sneaky Dan Sears took the night off to he didn't even give us an excuse. He's just out there doing something. Probably no good for society, but we have Matt Smith, Brian Larson, Mike Hilty, Aaron Lashbrook, and Mike Whildin are here. Let's have some fun. We are on movie number 197, and we're on a theme that suggests this is a movie we should have watched if we want to call ourselves a movie club. This is Mike Whildin's pick, and he went big on this one. He went with The Godfather. Quite the epic 3-hour movie. Scorsese's, I'm going to say it with a question mark, masterpiece? Because some people feel like it's overrated.
Are you sure it's Scorsese's masterpiece? Because last I heard it was Francis Ford Coppola's masterpiece.
Yeah. Let the ball breaking begin.
I want to put a mark.
Did you
on
watch
that
the
one,
right
Tim,
movie?
for editing purposes?
This is not a ball breaking opportunity. This is more of a clear fact check.
Now, is that a Francis Ford Coppola? Do I have that right? Is it Francis Ford Coppola?
No, Bobby Coppola, his cousin. He did it.
Bobby Coppola's 1970 something classic. You know what?
Nicolas Cage is his nephew.
What is going on over here?
That is very true.
Whildin, take it away. That's the best intro I can give you today. Take it away. I'm going to mute myself.
All right. I'm not letting you off the hook for this at some point, so it's all good. Sorry, Whildin, you may continue with your virtually unknown movie for our movie group discussion tonight.
Yeah, so little indie film called The Godfather.
Well, there's going to be a lot of mutes today, guys. There's going to be a lot of mutes.
Probably.
Get yourself comfortable.
Tim is getting angry.
Yep, we're going to see some mutes. As you were, Mike Whildin, as you were.
All right, third time's the charm. So we watched The Godfather. Back in college, where I went with Mike Hilty because we're close to the same age. I was on a kick of just reading books that became famous movies. Silence of the Lambs was one of them. But the first one was The Godfather. So I read the book for the first time and then watched the movie for the first time. And I was glad I did. It actually gave me a lot of, it helped me understand the movie a lot more. But we'll get into that as we go. So I'm going to bring out my little spin wheel thing here.
Oh, shit.
And first, we are going to hear from...
No. Yes.
Mike Hilty.
First of all, Tim, how dare you?
All right. Hey, good take, Mike. All right. Next, we're going to hear from... No, I'm kidding.
Sorry, that was the incidental mute. Hit the space bar.
Incidental mute. I mean, this movie's fine, I guess. Like, it's one of the greatest films ever made. I mean, this put virtually everything about this genre on the map, more so than any other movie before it. And then also it made Al Pacino the person that he is today. Marlon Brando was already a larger than life character up until this point, with other roles like On the Waterfront and Streetcar Named Desire and everything like that. So Marlon Brando is like an embarrassment of riches, and like he's the cherry on top of like this embarrassment of riches of all these talented people who are in this movie. Yes. Also by Martin Scorsese.
God damn it. Like you guys don't make mistakes. I don't make fun of you guys when you make mistakes.
Fuck you. So
name one incident
today.
Okay. All right.
I mean, just everything about this movie is legendary to some extent or another. Like, if we mentioned it last week a little bit, if you haven't seen the miniseries also on Paramount Plus called The Offer, which is about the making of The Godfather, not like 100% accurate. And also, spoiler, the movie gets made. It's actually a pretty, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Useless.
Great. Thanks.
But
Thanks,
but
Hilty.
but overall, it's a pretty good representation of the struggles that they had trying to convince Paramount Studios to actually make this movie, because it was notoriously difficult, because it's not just finding a director, but finding the right actors to do it. And they had to fight to get Al Pacino to do the role. And like Paramount didn't, because he was virtually unknown at the time. He's had been in a couple things, but he was not the Al Pacino we all know and love today. Well, at least not the parody version of himself that he is today. But back when he actually like gave a shit about performing, this was this was like a calling card that one could just dream of in terms of performance. And it's pretty criminal that he wasn't nominated for best act or best supporting actor in this at all. He eventually, got his just desserts with the second part, but Marlon Brando, rightfully so, won an award for this. But the the weird time for him to make a stance on the way that Hollywood was um, treating indigenous people, because he sent an indigenous woman to accept his Oscar on his behalf uh, for that. So if you if you've never seen that acceptance speech, um, I encourage you to do so, because it's a good message. It was just a interesting time to do it. Um, I think upon rewatch, because I've seen this movie a bunch of times, I think the biggest thing that I took away from this is how technically amazing this movie is, from the amazing cinematography, the choice of um, just the way that certain things are shot, which is, I guess, cinematography again, but then the 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 costumes, the just set design, um, the music as well. The music is iconic. And
It's fantastic. Yep.
and not only that, because it's been a while since I've seen this, you don't realize how much The Godfather is used as either a reference point or as a parody point. Like, I recently was rewatching Robin Hood Men in Tights, and there's a scene just lifted straight from The Godfather, from that, which makes sense, because I'm sure Mel Brooks probably takes from The Godfather just like everybody else takes from The Godfather at some point or another. So I think that was a big takeaway from me, is just how technically sound that Francis Ford Coppola directs this. So that was
I'm
that
sure
was
there's been lots of references in pop culture to this movie, right? Because it's so iconic.
Mhm.
Who had Men in Tights coming up in the first 5 minutes of this discussion? Did anybody have that? I didn't have that on my bingo card. So well
Yeah.
played, Hilty.
I do my best, because the Simpsons has parodied this a zillion times. Um,
Yeah.
there's like a whole community in this that is pretty much a parody of The Godfather. So, shout out to The Simpsons again, because
Yes.
there's that. Um, and then I think the last thing I will, or next to last thing, because I'll say the thing that I appreciate about this the most. Um, I think the only real knock that I could give this movie is that Diane Keaton just sticks out like a sore thumb in this. And
I agree.
that's it's unfortunate, because Diane Keaton is a tremendously talented performer. I think her character is important, because it kind of represents a part of Michael Corleone's life that he could have had he not descended into darkness the way that he did. But she kind of comes off as a little annoying at times. And also, I don't know. Like I think if they could have tightened that story up or tightened her character up a little bit, I think it would have made a little bit more sense and it maybe would have had a little bit more of an impact. Maybe that's just me, but obviously not because Tim agrees. But all the characters in this are fantastic. The themes in this is the last thing I'll say. The themes in this are amazing. Everything from old school, like with Don Corleone, his old school mentality about, let's stick to gambling, let's stick to less risky ventures versus this new school mentality, which is all about the drugs, the narcotics, which yeah, there's a lot of money in that, but it's highly risky, high risk, high reward. Even the whole thing about, this whole notion of the American dream having to come with the hard work and everything like that, but the hard work always comes at a price. Michael Corleone is one of the more fascinating characters in all of cinema because this is a life that his father never wanted for him, and he somehow still managed to end up in this spot with he looks at this, he's a war hero. They keep saying this, like he's a war hero, he's college educated. He doesn't, he's this isn't something that he should be really getting involved in, but he somehow manages to still get involved with it. And I remember the first time I watched this, I didn't think that he was actually like Michael Corleone was actually going to kill those two guys at the restaurant. I thought that he was going to chicken out. And then when he does, like, oh shit, he actually does do it. And then he flees to Italy to kind of lay low for a little while, which again, one thing that the offer talks about is how notoriously difficult it was to convince Paramount to actually have them film in Sicily. And I think that part of the movie sometimes gets a little bit of crap because it's not as not as flashy as all the stuff that's going on back in America, but I think that part is still important because it gives Michael Corleone an opportunity to learn a little bit more about his roots and to learn a little bit more about what it means to be the head of a family and the risk that he takes. He marries somebody else and she dies pretty quick. So yeah, Whildin, great pick. I mean, not a whole lot to say about this that, other than this is one of the greatest movies ever made. By Francis Ford Coppola.
Well,
I'm done.
yeah. Yeah, thanks, LT. No, I agree. I've seen this all the way through, I think just the one time, but I really enjoyed watching it this time too. I don't know. I know in this group, probably more so before we started recording, but I know I kind of have a history of like some of the older movies I have a little bit of a hard time with. This one I was engaged the whole time. I was just like, I was really into it. And if I kind of like looked down or something and I missed something, it's like, no, I gotta go back. Like I'd rewind it. So quick comment, and then I've got a question for everybody, and question for you especially, LD. Um, yeah, the old school mentality that Vito has, I love that. I love that that's all centered around just this kind of this ideal of respect. There's a lot of it's like, yeah, they're all thieves, they're all, murderers and everything, but they're all criminals, but more so in The Godfather than any other, criminal movie or show. And obviously there are shows that, take from this, but just that idea of respect and just especially at the beginning when he's hearing all the requests and everything, but yeah, that respect and tradition, I just love that part of this movie. Question, Hilty first and then everybody. Do you think, obviously, Don
No.
Corleone doesn't want Michael to be a part of this? Do you think that Michael wants to be part of this? Like before he does get involved and there's no turning back, like at what point do you think he actually, because obviously he's made for it. I love the whole story of like, never supposed to be, involved with it and everything. That's kind of a classic trope, for lack of a better word. But at what point do you think he actually realizes, like, hey, I'm good at this and I want to do it? Or does he ever?
I'll take a shot at that.
Or did he the whole time?
He said Hilty
Go
first,
ahead.
Tim. He said Hilty first, Tim.
Oh, sorry.
Larson, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Larson. Go ahead.
I didn't.
I'll even put myself on mute.
He said Larson with a certain amount of disdain. Did you guys hear that?
It's not like it had an O in it.
I would say that he noticed.
Don't you put an O on
It's
my
two
name.
questions you're asking. I would say he noticed he's good at it while he was sitting in the meeting talking about how to respond to Vito being shot, but it didn't necessarily mean that he wanted to do it. He was just sitting in that room and going, no, we could do this. I wouldn't say he wanted to be involved when he offered to shoot the cop, and I can't. There's so many names in here, I get confused. I was going to bring this up, but whoever the guy was that was running the narcotics, I think he did that out of family sort of dutiful. Like he was just, this is what we do. I can be the one, I can take the team. I'm part of the family, but I don't think he wanted to be a part of it until his wife died. I think that was the moment where he was like,
I got it. Yep.
Fuck this. Fuck this. My brother's dead. Fredo can't do it. He's a putz. I'm taking over. I'm coming home and I'm taking over. That's what I thought.
Okay. Yeah,
I
like that thought.
Larson is absolutely correct. In this, I would agree with that.
Actually, and I was going to talk about this. I disagree. I think after the hospital scene where he pushes his father into another room and they stand out front and he gets hit by the cops, that scene where he's explaining what we need to do and I'm going to kill these guys,
pretend you got a gun. Yeah.
And they no, when he's in the room and they're talking about setting up the meeting and I'm going to kill him, he's like, and this is what we're and the slow zoom that they did on him as he was talking, I kind of felt like that was a transformation moment. Because even like, okay, so the first scene they show him, he's in his uniform and he didn't look, he looked good in the uniform. They didn't disrespect that. But the other times they showed him when he was dressed normal, he looked like he kind of was slouched over a little bit, a little smaller character. And then that scene, he's starting to sit up right,
legs crossed, calm.
This is
like
right. And and then the scene in the restaurant, he's sitting. The only time it showed a little bit of weakness was right before he shot, because he was sitting there and he's, and they're showing, he's looking his eyes all around him, and I could see where you could think maybe he's going to not do it, but there's no way he could not do it. And then he stands up and puts the bullets in him. He does not drop the gun right away. It's like, drop it to your hand. And he's like, fuck you. I'm Corleone, which not really, but that was my take on the transformation of Michael when he now is, this is what I need to do. I need to be part of the family business.
The dinner scene, I think I thought it was very well done. Like Brian was saying, didn't hold the gun low and drop it out, let it slide out of his hand. I think that made it more real. He's panicked. Adrenaline is like,
totally
he's living on adrenaline right then. So like he's remembering the things, but they're probably like screams in his head, don't look at anybody, drop the gun.
Right. And he only shot Salazzo once. He didn't shoot him twice. So,
but what a shot.
Yeah. He wasn't moving.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, I feel like, his dad wanted him to get into politics, right? That's the backstory on that. I think he didn't want to do that at all. I feel like there was a piece of him who always wanted to be a part of, what are my dad and my big brothers doing, right? But at the restaurant, to Brian's point, I think that's when he actually realized what he had to do to be part of that life, because he hesitated for sure, because they told him to come out blazing. And he didn't. He sat down.
He sat there. Yeah.
I feel like he always kind of wanted it. And then he had this moment of panic, like, wait, can I really do this? And then obviously he did it. And then it was over. Then it was, he's ready to go.
Well, let me throw back on that
right.
just a little bit, because there is a lot of, Mike was just talking about it. I really do like the respect in this movie. There's a couple of moments where, and we can get into that later if somebody else brings it up, but I don't think he could feel like I can be in charge as long as Sonny is alive. I think he had to go, as much as I think I could be better at this, Sonny's alive, so it's not my place. I think there was some of that going on with him.
You know,
Maybe, but do you think? But he wanted to be at that point. He wanted to be, is what we're saying. And I'm kind of with Brian on that. And as far as that, like that slow zoom, Hilty was talking about cinematography and just the way everything was shot. That's one of the best, one of the best shots in the movie is that slow zoom as he's doing that monologue, talking about like, all right, here's what we're gonna do. You set the meeting, and I'll kill him and everything.
I'm gonna disagree with Tim. Agree with Matt. Kind of both with Brian. In 4 parts. So,
get comfortable, people.
Nice.
Well,
we have an outline coming up.
There's a lot going on. One, I always think he was going to be part of it. Matt brought up that, he was going to be a senator. He was going to be under his dad's thumb he was going to work for the family as a senator. He wasn't going to be a shooter or
just like Tom Hagen was a lawyer.
Just like Tom being a lawyer. Yes.
But he was going to be like, they were almost, it'd be better if it was Tom and not him, so they could air gap his name from the Corleone family. But the next best thing would be him. War hero. He's going to go in. He's going to push bills that we need done, So I don't think there was any chance of him ever not being in the family business. They just didn't want him to be a button man or, anywhere where he could truly get his hands dirty or end up in jail. Where I would agree with you guys talking about that after he got hit and he was, and his face was swollen and he was in the chair. That to me, if you had to pick a scene and say, that's the one right there, I think maybe Tim brought it up in Italy when his wife blew up.
Mm-hmm.
Was that you? I think he already knew before she blew up. He knew after shooting the guy. So when he went to Italy, he's already talking to, his guys. Go get her dad. I want to meet your daughter. You know who I am?
Yeah.
I'm going to marry you. He already had the swagger. It sucked when she blew up, but, and I'm going to talk more about that. But for this point, I would go with, he was always going to be in. He was never going to be out. He was just going to be a different kind of tool. But if I had to pick a time, it would be when he was in that chair and he sat back. Because just before that, in my notes, he was at dinner with Diane Keaton. And where Brian was saying he looks so small. He's like wearing a white button-down shirt. And like he barely looked over the table, it seemed like, And then he's like a different person in that chair when he's talking about, we got to do this. We got to do it soon. It's got to be me, blah, blah, blah. So that's my take on your question.
Nice.
Also, the one thing I want to point out, I don't think they didn't want Michael in the family business because he was weak. That's one of the old classic.
They just wanted to protect him.
They just wanted, right.
Yeah.
He had a purpose. And after being in the military war hero, he could then move on to be something like that.
Yeah. Anybody who thinks that they didn't want Michael in the family because he couldn't hack it or he was weak or anything like that is clearly not paying attention. That is. But to Ryan, to your point, there are a contingent of people out there who do believe that, Michael just had this bright future ahead of him and that he could have been happy, outside of the Corleone family. And no, that was never going to be that was never going to happen. It was just a pipe dream.
Think about the way he told that story to Kay. Remember, he tells a story about the offer he couldn't refuse.
Luca Brasi
held a gun to it, and he goes, "That's a true story." And that was it. Like, there was no emotion in it. It was just, that's a true story.
Well, and that's how he was describing the scary guy sitting over there. Who's that guy talking to himself?
And he comes back, they cut back, and he says, that's not me. But that's definitely in reaction to her face. Her face is like, what are you talking about? He's just trying to save face.
So this is a great
And
question, Matt. Like, does he mean that, or is he straight up lying to her?
I mean,
It's
It comes
probably
across like he
both.
means it
It's
there,
but
but
it's probably a little bit of both because he he consistently lies to her throughout the course of the movie, and
Yep.
then at the very end, like, do you have anything to do with Carlo's death? And be like, nope, not at all.
You can ask me once. You can ask
Yeah.
me once.
yeah.
And
No.
Gary,
uh,
Gary, it's not
and
a lie if you believe it.
Right.
right. And Hilty, you made the point earlier. Anybody that thinks Michael was too weak is clearly not paying attention, because especially because like he got back from Italy and was in charge of the family right away. And it was just like they wouldn't have done that if everybody thought he couldn't handle it. You know what I mean? Fredo obviously couldn't handle it, but it wasn't like Michael was also weak and they couldn't.
Well,
He was just
that's
the
that's
lesser
why
of two evils. He
that's
clearly
what
was
that's why Fredo got banished to Vegas.
Yep.
right.
Like,
Exactly.
just
All right.
just try to stay out of the way. That's all. What
All right.
I
All
thought of
right.
one last thing because I'm curious from other people who, what is your favorite reference to the Godfather in pop culture, as as you think about stuff. I'll throw up mine because mine is from the show Community, where one of the characters, Abed, he has a chicken finger distribution thing. And he
Yes.
uh he becomes the godfather of that. So if you love the show Community, uh go back and watch that episode because that episode is fantastic and a great nod to gangster movies, particularly Goodfellas and The Godfather.
The show is fantastic and is full of pop culture references. All right, let's move on for now. We'll spin the wheel here. We are going to hear from Matt Smith.
All right.
Give us your take on The Godfather.
Um, yeah, I thought this movie with Henry and Joe Pesci. Oh, wait, that was Goodfellas by Martin Scorsese. Oh, we watched Godfather.
Everybody's laughing is going to get a mute too. Free with the
Anyway,
mutes today.
no, I kid, Tim, of course. No, this movie was great, obviously. I mean, I always kind of balk when people say it's the greatest movie ever made, but I mean, it's got to be in the discussion because between the acting, the writing, the cinematography, when you hear some of the backstory, even if half of what the TV show The Offer put forth was true, it's an interesting story. Um, just in terms of how the actual mob felt about it and how they got some of these people to do the parts and they didn't want Al Pacino to do the part because he was too short and all this other stuff. I mean, it's just some interesting stuff. So, um, yeah, when I first saw this movie, I was pretty young. I don't remember how young, but I was pretty young. And I didn't love it because it is, if you think about it, it's kind of slow. It's got a nice slow burn, but I appreciate that now that I'm older, um, in terms of storytelling. And then there's moments, obviously, of sort of action and fast paced, but it does kind of slow burn in the beginning. I love the take on just family. I think they open with this wedding and you have the whole family there and all these friends, and I'm sure there's a million cousins. It's a Mediterranean family. My wife's Mediterranean, so I get it.
That wedding scene takes 26 minutes, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, but
And
It's quite the
and I don't know
setup.
how you cut any of it out.
right, exactly, and that's why I said it's kind of a slow burn, but they're really setting that scene. And it doesn't even open with the wedding technically, right? It opens with the two guys
Oh,
talking.
right.
But just how important that is to them and why they're so tight. And then later on he yells at Sonny when they're talking to the drug guys about don't ever, tell somebody outside the family how you're feeling. And Michael's does a play on that later at the end, right? Yeah, no, it's just really it's classic. I mean, I don't know if they wouldn't have cast Al Pacino, I don't know what the movie would have looked like. Obviously, nobody does. But there, I mean, James Caan was in that role for like a hot minute before they decided on, right? So like, could you imagine Sonny being Michael? Like that was just a weird. So it just everything kind of fell into place for them. I'm sure some of it was just dumb luck. But whatever work they did on it was great. Some of the stuff I loved. There's a little trivia thing. The guy who played the bigger guy who's teaching him how to shoot.
Clemenza.
Clemenza, yeah. There's a story that he pissed off Francis Ford Coppola, so he made him do that running up the stairs scene 20 times. He kept saying they had to do it again. So I'm wondering if it was a scene where he shoots the guys in the elevator because he's pretty out of breath in that scene. If you notice, like he's
He
huffing
is.
and puffing,
He
and I'm
is.
like, I get it, you're a big guy coming upstairs, but he was huffing and puffing pretty good. So I wonder if that was the scene that it was, but I thought that was funny.
That's great.
One of my favorite lines is Sonny. I don't want my brother walking out of the bathroom with just his dick in his hand. Like that's very Sonny. Um, as far as lines go, I was looking at some other quotes. Just Michael, his flip, right? And I always think he wanted to be part of the family, but his kind of flip into I'm the Don now mode, and he just becomes this badass. Just all his dialogue gets better, and the look he gives these people and everything. I just think it was cool. Yeah, and then so people were talking about pop culture. Obviously, The Simpsons has done like every scene in this movie at some point. I'm pretty sure. And I think that's a sign, not just The Simpsons, but all the pop culture throwbacks to this is just a sign of how impactful it was. I mean, this is 1972, based on a novel, obviously, so they had something to work with. It's not like it just came out of nowhere, but um, yeah, all the people involved in the movie and how people thought this was going to be this terrible look on Italian Americans, and it was going to, uh, I don't know the right word. They're going to keep the stereotypes and all this stuff, and then they ended up, I think, just finding gold here. So, um, I need to go watch Godfather 2 again. I've seen this movie quite a few times. I think I've only seen Godfather 2 once, and so I need to go back and watch
Yep.
that because that's something I know a lot of people like, and I just don't remember enough of it.
It'd
So
be cool if somebody picked it tonight.
It would be. It would be. Whose pick is it tonight? I don't know.
spoiler alert, it's not going to happen. But
Shit.
Damn it.
No. Just to tag on to what Matt was saying. So when um, Al Pacino, steps up, Michael, and gets the better lines, and just his whole demeanor changes. There's kind of a difference between so both Michael and his dad, and I don't know if like they both, like in a room, they just commanded respect without asking for it, where Sonny like demands respect.
That's right.
He'll scream at you and slap you and this and that. They didn't really have to do any of that shit, just with looks and words, and a lot of times not even looking at the person. They might look away, and it's like, oh
yeah,
fuck.
I,
No.
I have so sorry. I remember what I was going to say. My favorite scene. I remember I was my favorite scene, and I remember it when I was a kid too. Is the horse head in the bed? I just, it's just such like a show of power. Like it's the next morning. I always assumed it was the next morning. I could be wrong. It could be just some random morning, but I always just assumed it was the next morning. And he finds this. I thought that was great. And
And
then
that's Tom. Like Tom's there by himself, so like he didn't have guys there to do it. So Tom like took a hacksaw or whatever.
or they knew somebody. I mean,
Oh, probably
I
hired
gotta
some
Bad
imagine
guys in
people.
California.
they knew somebody.
Yep.
But yeah, they make it seem like it's a day, because like he flies out and then they're like, Tom, how you doing? You just got back. You just got off
Yeah.
the flight.
Yeah. And
Because the
go ahead.
Don would have needed to get the news first before they made the call to cut the horse's head off.
Yep.
And he gives it to him personally when he gets there. So it's got to be a day or two later.
Okay.
And also,
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
think there's a subtle hint here too, because they do say when they have the meeting with the 5 families that Vito Corleone says, like, thank you for everybody being here and people coming all the way from California and from blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. There's kind of a hint. Yep, we got people everywhere. And so they made a call.
I had a question actually for people. So when he calls Sonny into the room in the beginning, Sonny's off with his newest affair, and they get him back, right? And he makes that, and Don makes a specific talk about, do you spend time with your family?
Yeah.
Because when you spend time with your family, that makes you a man. And doesn't he look at Sonny?
He looked right at him.
That's
Yep.
got to be like, I know what you're doing, knock it off, right?
Get your shit
Like,
together. Yep.
okay. That's what I thought too, but they never come back to it.
Well, and even after Sonny gets whacked, they his dad makes a comment about, like, you know, Sonny never would have lasted in this. You know, he was the next in line, but it was going to be short,
Right?
you know, or something like that. They always knew.
Well, and he didn't. He showed emotion when he saw him, right? Because that's a famous scene. Look what they did to my boy. They massacred my boy. But like when they first told him, I don't remember him being super broken up about it until he went and saw him. Am I wrong on that?
Well,
Mike, we can't hear
he
you.
was
Or
pretty-
when they initially tell him that that Michael had to go to Italy because he was the one that killed McCluskey and
Salazzo.
Salazzo. Like, yeah. So like he almost looks more disturbed by that fact
Yeah.
than the
Well, yeah,
initial
'cause-
reaction to Sonny. Obviously, when he sees him, you know, his body, but yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I think
His-
that was I
his-
lost my younger boy, right? He was supposed to be the one that was not involved and going to be in politics, I think.
So Matt, when he finds out about Sonny, is when Tom's got to have the drink before he can tell him what goes on. He's like, "Hey,
Yeah.
there's cars coming up. My wife is crying. Why don't you tell me what everybody else seems to know?" He did actually immediately just go into, I'm back. I'm back to in charge of the family mode. Like Sonny's been doing this, but you could see immediately he's like, okay, call a meeting. He hasn't called a meeting the whole time. Sonny was in charge, but immediately there was, I think what I took from it was he couldn't be emotional because he had to be in charge.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Next up, we are going to hear from, looks like Aaron. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yes. I love the wheel. I hate the
Thank
wheel.
you.
I love the wheel. So if you would have asked me last week, 2 weeks ago, have you seen The Godfather? Yep, I've seen it 100 times. I know it by heart. I think it's been on in the house so many times that I believe that I saw it, and I have seen it. But this is the first time I watched it with purpose. And like really tried to pay attention. Like I didn't even realize like Tessio and Clemenza, the two, you know, main, that they were gonna break off, and you know, you said we could have our own family. They were like the two main guys the whole time. I thought there was like a lot of guys bouncing in and out of that inner circle, but the inner circle was pretty tight. There was only a couple of guys that ever got really close to Vito. So, and that was just 100 little things like that that I never actually really paid attention to. You know, because like I said, it's been on pretty much my whole life. As soon as the VHS came out, my dad had, you know, this on tape. Every time it was on a holiday or whatever near a holiday, you know, it was on the TV. So like one thing I didn't realize was the amount of time the movie spans, and it's 10 years, so it's 45 to 55, which had no clue. And this I still had to rewind and look at, and the time really blew me away. I never realized, so the wedding has to happen in fall at the latest because everybody's outside, it's sunny, the leaves haven't even changed. I'm assuming they're in New York, so you know, the leaves would change and everything. And then when it comes down to like them actually making a move and stuff, and the whole Luca Brasi, you know, that's winter. You know, I didn't realize months had passed. It seemed like they made the idea sitting in the restaurant.
Like it was the next week.
And then Mike goes out,
Right.
and then the Don's coming out of the restaurant, but it's wintertime when the Don's coming out of the restaurant. So never paid attention to that. Another thing I picked up on that never really paid attention to, that I knew all the parts, but how they played together was so much better when you pay attention. The husband of the sister, and I should know both their names, but I can't. Talia
Carlo?
Shire.
Carlo and Connie.
Yeah, Carlo and Connie. Carlo, that whole probably baiting his girlfriend to call the house, talk to his wife, start a fight to get. I never realized that was all an intricate play to get Sonny to that point. Like I said, I'd seen that scene a million times. I'd seen Sonny get shot at the toll booth a million times, but how it played together. And then when Michael's got him in the chair, just tell me, because he's too stupid to do it himself. He didn't come up with this plan. Who baited you into it? And once he gives him the name, then he gets choked out in the car. He's never getting on that flight. But anyway, so the time was a big thing that I'd never paid attention to, and it really makes the movie that much better, because I would have told you I liked it before. I think I kind of love it now.
Nice.
I liked at the start, never really paid attention, how it goes from it opens in darkness, then you're outside in the bright light, everything's white, at the wedding, and then you're back in the office and it's dark, and they bounce back and forth a couple times. Like, I want to say, like, showing the two different worlds.
That's great.
The wealthy playing around, everything's great, money makes everything better, and then the sinister side of it, the deals he's got to make, the stuff he has to do to keep people happy, with the tradition. And that's been brought up, the tradition and the respect. You can ask me anything on my daughter's wedding kind of thing. I don't know if that's a real thing or if the Godfather just made that up, the movie. Francis Ford Coppola. But it works, and it's so good.
Well, Aaron, to your point about the lighting, and the kind of how the family, like a lot of the family scenes are in sunlight. So even the funeral, or like Don Corleone's or Vito Corleone's funeral is even shrouded in light as well. The only time that a family gathering is shrouded in darkness is the baptism. And the baptism, like, obviously the baptism is symbolic because the baby is getting baptized, but Michael Corleone is like officially getting baptized into this life of crime, and kind of being in charge of this. So yeah, it's a good call out with the lighting, and good trick by director Francis Ford Coppola.
So that was, I just, a little thing, and maybe being part of this group and talking about cinematography and all that stuff, or maybe I'm, I just made it. I didn't make it up, but like seeing things that nobody intended. The FBI going around the cars. So I started off taking a bunch of notes, and then I stopped. So
same. Yeah.
So the FBI, and then they go out, so they're getting harassed. But I put, that's when like the two worlds start to mix, when they go out and have to, they're smashing. And we see the other Don pull the film out when he gets a picture taken of him. But we also see in that FBI scene that they, break another camera, which probably has a Garaflex flash handle on it, which could have been made into a sweet ass Darth Vader lightsaber. Somebody already said it, but I had Michael saying that that's my family, that's not me. Telling the story about Johnny Fontaine, who is supposed to be Frank Sinatra, right?
Well, there's some argument on that. Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo claim it is not supposed to be Frank Sinatra, but Frank Sinatra took it personally and was not happy about
Of
it.
course he did.
Shocking
Yeah.
that Sinatra would take something like that personally.
So
Um,
Not all about you, Frankie.
see, and then I got to take better notes and get better at, because I've got Kraut, Mick, friend. I think it was part of the story he was telling or something.
That's when they
That's
had
what-
Tom. That they had Tom
Yeah.
sort of kidnapped, and they were like, "You guineas," and he's like, "I'm not.
Oh.
I'm Irish and German.
I'm
There
half
it
German, half Irish. Yeah.
Okay, so I probably should have wrote Tom next to that or something.
You just want to say crowd again.
I did. I really did.
That's a repeat.
I wanted to bring up how it
We've
is
gotten some
appropriate.
comments about that in the
No,
in the
you did not.
It's really
blogs.
not, because
The
they dropped
German-
the N-word in this too. So
So that means I can?
No.
please do.
Well,
no.
Why would you say
let's
that,
think
Brian?
about that for a second.
Anyway, the horse head scene, I had all new respect for that. Understood the whole thing, but never put together, maybe never paid attention that was that guy's prize horse that he had just shown Tom in the stables, so that's, I don't know, even better.
How
That's pretty linear, Aaron.
Well,
That's
no.
pretty- like
is this like
Did you ever
8-year-old
really
Aaron?
see the movie?
Is it 8-year-old Aaron that didn't put this together? So
Maybe
as
not.
you-
Like I said,
Maybe he watched the Scorsese version instead. Maybe the Scorsese version doesn't show the scene where they show the horse.
I'm
or anything.
adding
We
up
all make
points, Hilty.
mistakes,
This
Tim.
is all coming back to you. We all
Fine.
make mistakes.
Worth it. Worth it.
I just never realized it was that exact horse, or never put it together. Like I said, I probably saw the scene 15 times of them in the stables, walked away, stole something from the kitchen, turkey or whatever was being
Mhm.
cooked, came back in and the horse head's there, and just, whatever.
Well, and Aaron, to your credit too, this is a movie where like you're not gonna get everything the first time.
Right. And
If
I
you watch this
understand.
one time, you're just not gonna get it. So like
Fair.
you go back and you actually pay attention, like you're gonna catch new stuff on a rewatch. You almost have to. So I don't blame you there.
Well, and kind of my point, without getting ridiculed so bad, was the fact that, it's kind of a key thing. You guys all said it. Matt's over there with his hands from here to here. It's super linear.
Yeah.
How are you this fucking stupid?
no, I didn't say that.
That's, I know.
Did not say that.
I like
He
putting
did.
words in
He
your
did
mouth.
though. He did.
Remember that one time, Matt? No. No, my point is missing something that big. Somebody who would say that I've seen this movie several times, maybe even dozens, and that little big thing, I never put that together before. That was the exact prize horse that this horse ain't even gonna run. I'm just gonna milk it, or whatever.
Did you say milk it?
Yeah,
Those are cows.
well,
Never mind.
different
Carry
way. Different, way more expensive for a gallon.
on. Maybe you missed that. I don't know. I don't know where we are now.
Tomato,
probably didn't-
tomato, Coppola,
He
Scorsese.
probably didn't use that phrasing, but that's what they were going to do. Putting it out to stud, it doesn't have to go anywhere. The line, I think Hilty asked it, the one that I often forget, but every time I hear it in the movie, having all the judges and politicians in his pockets like so many nickels and dimes. I love that. That's probably my favorite line in the movie. But then, and I must say no. And then he gives them good reasons. So when we were talking about the drug deal, you seem like you're, a good businessman and this and that, and you wish but I must decline your offer, blah, blah, blah.
Really
I
gentlemanly.
love how he talks.
It's very gentlemanly.
Yeah. But then they're planning on probably killing him right after that. Yeah, and then I talk about, I really missed out on how much time is actually passing. It had to have been months between the time that, Luca ends up in the restaurant and gets his hands stapled to the bar, and they, choke him out. I liked and I just I put the car, the bar, the shopping, and then the hit. It was a good few minutes of the Don getting in the car, Luca getting killed at the bar, them out shopping, Michael and his girlfriend, and then the big hit. Solozo, the Turk, backed by, I think these were just notes for me because I wanted to pay better attention. And he talks about this later where he has no respect for Tatalia. And when it's the big boss making the move and he gets in the car with Tom or Michael and he's telling him Tom never, or Tatalia never could have come up with this.
He's a pimp.
I thought it was Tatalia. Tatalia's a pimp. This had to come from the bigger boss at the end of the table. Them talking about blood is expensive. I like that line too. It is all about business. It's not personal. We're all here to make money. But we also have to have a war every 5-10 years. It's been about 10 years. We got to clear the bad blood and, go to the mattresses. I'm pretty much going to leave it at there because the rest is just me. We've already talked about the transformation of Sonny from the little kid to the, not Sonny, Michael from the little kid to the Don. The only other thing was Apollonia, great name. And then her blowing up. So one last thing about time, he's in Italy for over a year. Then he's back and he runs into Kay, and he says he's been back in the United States for over a year. So he hasn't seen her in 2 years and proposes to her.
Yeah.
He proposed to Apollonia, to his, or at least her dad right away too. So
right, I plan on marrying her. And then the other thing, and I couldn't find anything about it last, Diane Keaton, always in bright red, pretty much head to toe. I was thinking I'd find something like in a meaning somewhere because the oranges had kind of a meaning, but she was just always in red. And I didn't find any explanation about it. Anybody who does deeper dives, if anybody came across, if that meant anything, or I didn't, to me, somebody else brought out that she was kind of distracting. I don't know if it was Hilty or Brian. But to me, her always being in head to toe red was very distracting. Not so much her character, but anyway, that's it. Love the movie. Good pick. Thought I loved it. Now I know I do.
Awesome. Love hearing that. So real quick on the symbolism, does anybody know of any other, obviously the oranges have meaning, and I don't know if the Diane Keaton and red thing has meaning. We talked about the lighting and the light and the dark and everything. Are there any other parts of this movie that are, full of symbolism that anybody knows of? I'm just curious. I don't actually have an answer to that. I'm just throwing it out there.
We need Melo.
I don't have anything besides the oranges that I knew about.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Melo question.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, then a different. Go ahead.
Structurally, the only other thing that I could think of is just, it's like doors in a sense. So doors, like a clear differentiating point between, that separates, family business from the real world and everything like that. And some of the more the iconic moment of the movie where the door is being closed on
K.
On K with Michael and all of these people who are now pledging loyalty to him as the Don from this point forward. So the door is a big one, but I'm gonna do some digging really quick and see if I can find anything on the red dresses.
Well, then let me ask something else then. So Aaron, you brought up the part with Barzini, with the big meeting with all the Dons. This is a part where afterwards I actually had to go, like, or actually, no, I paused it in the middle of it and had to look it up. Like, okay, I know he figures it out, Barzini, and I remember reading about how he figured out it was Barzini, like in the actual book, but I couldn't remember. And kind of the first time I watched it through last night or whatever it was, um, I kind of went, wait, how did he know? Like, I had to go back and watch that scene again, and I did a little bit of digging online, like looked at forums and stuff like that. And there's no like one thing that sticks out. Like he says anything. It's not like there's any moment where you kind of see it hit Vito where he's like, aha. It's just kind of a very subtle thing. Does anybody else have a theory about like how he figured that out?
Yeah, I do. He was really good at reading people's reactions, and Barzini had nothing to do with the conversation between him and who was it, Talia?
Talia.
Natalia, yeah.
And he just kind of jumps in like he's not part of the conversation. He's like, well, Corleone's got all these people in his pocket and he should share. Like he throws that out really quickly when he's not even part of the conversation. And you don't have to see Vito's reaction to understand that he got it and he's got a poker face and he's not going to show that he got it. And then he
He's also
says,
he's also very quick to acknowledge when they kind of make a deal. He's like, well, then it's agreed, and it's just
exactly, exactly. That's what I took away from that after that is he jumped
yeah.
in real quick. Vito saw it and refused to acknowledge it as a facial expression. So we don't get to see it, but then he puts a connection after.
Yeah.
And like going along with what Tim was just saying about knowing like the old school rules and just being a good judge of character or whatever. No, like there's no let's find out, let's make sure. Michael kind of does that when he, kills his brother-in-law, but the Don didn't. He went with his gut every time. But that brings us back to the whole the person that brings you the meeting is the one that betrayed you.
Right.
You're going to get killed if you go to that meeting. And when it comes up and like it's Tessio that brought up the meeting, and I don't know if it's Michael, somebody says, I thought it'd be Clemenza.
Tom
It-
said it.
Yeah. And the other one was like, no, Tessio's the smart one. It's the smart move. It's the good move. It's what, it's what he's supposed to do. It's kind of like in chess, you're going to sacrifice this, especially those people who like are super good at chess. They know 6 moves ahead and they're just waiting for you to make a mistake, but you're going to sacrifice, pawns or whatever, because it's the smart move. You have to. You got to try.
So we're getting into something there. Here's some scenes we didn't see. We didn't see Vito Corleone talking to Michael about what's going to happen. We just got at the very end him saying, so the one who talks to you first is the one who's going to betray you. That's when you're going to be assassinated. And Michael's like, we've already been over this. You've already told me this 5 times. I've got it. Right. So we're to assume they had hours and hours of conversation about this that we didn't get to watch.
I'd argue weeks.
Sonny didn't get any of this. The only thing Sonny got was, hey, dumbass, don't give away what you're thinking in front of somebody else. You keep your shit to yourself. So Vito never had that faith in Sonny to be able to be smart enough to run it. And then, it's sort of implied to us. He talked to Michael about this whole game plan on his exit strategy, and then went, Michael, take it from here.
Right. Hilty, what do you got to say? You have your hand raised.
I do. How proper of me. So, upon doing some digging, so Kay's clothes are super bright up until she marries Michael Corleone. So, and then you like if you look back, obviously the funeral, she's in black there, but at the baptism where you think that she would be wearing a red dress, no, she wears a very muted color dress, and she only has red with her makeup and her lipstick. The final scene, it is a very plain colored clothing, not a whole lot of makeup or anything like that. It is supposed to represent her, just loss of herself as she marries Michael Corleone. And then there's actually a callback to it in The Godfather Part 2, which I will not spoil. If somebody ends up picking it, then I'll talk about it then. But it's supposed to the bright colors are supposed to represent who she is as a character, and then it gets sucked out of her as she gets more involved with Michael and the family.
Now that you say it, I can envision it in that
Yep,
last
I like
scene.
that.
But like I said, it was so distracting up until that point. I didn't even really notice it. I don't want to say I was annoyed by her, but it was like I didn't even pay attention to her. But you know, like kind of Vito's wife, you know, in that last scene, she just kind of fades into the woodwork. She, other than the conversation, she disappears.
I mean, it's
I
if you really look at this movie as well, is that this movie does not pay attention or portray women in a very good light at all. In,
Yeah.
in this movie, it's like this is clearly like men's work, and things like that. And the women, all we need to do is just sit around and protect them. And
Vito has
that
a line that says as much. He was like, "Women and children, they can be hysterical or something, but men, we can't afford to do it." He says something like that. Like yeah, they're pretty blatant about it.
Connie doesn't really fit
Also
that mold.
racism.
Uh, but hey, while we're talking symbolism and outfits, though, Michael also, he's the only one at the wedding. Why is he wearing a military uniform to a wedding? Did he
Well,
just
because
get
he
off the
just got
bus?
He
back from the
has to.
war, and
Did
that's
he
World
literally
War
just get
II.
off the bus? But what I'm saying is, he looks different, just as Kay looks different in the beginning. They're making it very obvious that these two are not like the rest. And then as he starts to get closer and closer to assuming power, he's wearing more and more of the collared shirts and
Yeah.
suits.
Well, and he even blows past like his dad in like the black suits, because I want to say like in one scene he's almost got like a shiny silver suit on. Like it's like really kind of over the top. I was like, did this pop into the 70s? Did it make it that far? But
Are they on roller
it,
skates?
yeah.
All right. Let's hear from one of the Larsons here. Which one is that? I can't see.
It's Beelar.
Brian, go ahead.
So I've seen the movie several times. I didn't know there was a horse in it or what.
It's not Bust Aaron's balls. It's
Oh,
Bust Aaron's
sorry.
balls.
It was actually in the director's cut by Scorsese. They put a horse in it.
Okay.
So
All right.
two birds, one stone.
He's getting his heads up.
Like you never make mistakes.
Incidental mute.
Yeah.
2 marriages.
wow. Wow.
Okay.
Aaron took a
This is
big
what-
swing at the first pitch that came his way. Big swing.
This is why
Oh, I
I keep
thought my
coming
mic was
back
off. I'm
to
sorry.
this group.
Oh man.
You're lucky I quit drinking. So there was a lot of from watching The Offer, you pick up on some things and just doing a little bit of research, but it seems like Coppola let the actors just kind of freestyle things a lot during this movie. The actor who played Luca Brasi was so nervous when he did the scene with Brando, he screwed it up and then started over again. And Coppola liked it so much, he left it in and then added the scene of him sitting outside doing that, which what a scene. Like we talked about it, how the scary guy doing that. Yeah. That all got added after he screwed up. So it kind of makes you think, they were at odds making this movie with with Paramount because they kept adding things and going over budget and stuff like that. So the scene where James Caan, Sonny Corleone, knocks the camera out of the FBI guy's hand, did that on his own, wasn't told to do that. and then pulling out the money and throwing it on the ground for him. Did that on his own too. I thought it was hilarious that Paulie, the driver, like goes to kick the camera, like to be the backup badass, and barely touches it with his foot. And just looked like such a wussy. You know, this movie just any kid who watched it, who it was kind of worse if you were an Italian kid because they just thought they were kings of the world after watching it, but it made the rest of us kind of want to be Italian for a minute. It's like, wow, that would be cool. Then you realize they're criminals as you get older. So not as cool, but hey, we still watch The Sopranos. The scene where he goes to Hollywood, Tom Hagen goes to Hollywood, how different does Hollywood look in that scene compared to, say, the Nice Guys, when we see like just Hollywood as it's grown, just in comparison. So I'm watching that scene at the producer's name was Waltz, and I'm watching the scene at his house. And I don't know if anyone else saw this. And I watched it on Paramount Plus, which it said it was remastered. I don't think that was Robert Duvall walking in his house with, walking in the backyard. And any of you guys would have to go and watch it again to see it, unless somebody noticed it too. But he's walking, there's an older guy, white hair, walking with a guy in a hat, and he looks like way taller and thinner than Duvall.
I do believe they used extras for that, so they didn't have to pay him. I think I read that somewhere, that both the guys, they didn't want to pay him to do that little scene, so they just used extras from far away.
Interesting. So yeah. The hospital scene when Pacino's running in the hall, he looked exactly the same way running in the airport scene in Heat, where he just it was like, wow, he's got a specific run even.
Tom Cruise.
I talked earlier about when I thought he changed to become Michael became the Godfather, basically the head of the family. So I just thought James Caan was awesome in this, beginning and end.
Yeah.
Just when he starts talking about the business at the dinner table, and Connie's, Daddy never talked about business in front of the kids, and then her husband brings it up, and he starts yelling at him, "Hey, we don't talk about business at the table." So, and I got this out of the offer. The guy, his name is I had it a second ago, Gianna Russi. He was the one who played Carlo. He actually slapped Talia Shire on purpose during the scene, the beating of her scene when she was pregnant. And they told James Caan to kick the shit out of him in that scene where he is on the street for real, like picking the trash can up and hitting him with it. And, he went overboard on it on purpose, according to the offer.
Some of that scene looks like really bad fake fighting.
Yeah, there's so much that's good about this movie and how much it's shot, but I that sticks out like a sore thumb to me. That especially the one cross punch where he's about like a foot away from his face. It's just like, ooh, that one was rough.
Well, and then punching him with the garbage can lid, that just distributes the force over a greater area, so it's not going to hurt as much.
Shut up, nerd.
Yeah. So when Mike had the swollen face trying to smoke a cigarette, he just looked ridiculous at one point. He's got it half hanging out of his mouth. So they have the scene, and fast forwarding to the baptism, basically knocking off everybody. And then they go, and Tessio is supposedly setting Michael up to get killed. And he's on the phone and he says, "Hey, we're coming." Who'd he talk to? Everyone's dead. I mean, who'd he set that call up with? I was curious.
probably a button like from one of the,
One of his
know,
guys, one of Tessio's guys, right?
But at some point, they're going to be like, why are we killing them? Everybody's dead. But then again, the news doesn't travel as quickly back then. They didn't have, obviously, cell phones or anything like that. When Michael is talking to Carlo, trying to get him to admit that he was involved in Sonny's death, and then he's like, no, I'm not going to make my wife a widow. Godfather.
Have a drink. Have a drink is code for you're about to get fucking shot.
But then the over the top is handing him the plane ticket. No, here's your ticket. You're going to go to Vegas. Just, you're not part of the family anymore. Yeah, that was really well done. Just all around, this movie was written well. I mean, yeah, you do need to watch The Offer. Al Ruddy is the producer of it, and The Offer is based on his book. So he looks very good during that series. But another Brando thing. He doesn't learn his lines. He doesn't like to. He uses cue cards. So there's a lot of times that he's just kind of looking at cue cards and talking and, didn't learn his lines. They said he did that in Superman too, but he didn't really have any lines in Superman. So just great movie. Glad I watched it again. And Aaron, like you said, though, I watched it a different way this time. I was much more in tune with the things going on. So I did absolutely enjoy it, and glad we watched it again. Or I watched it again. And we watched it as
Brian. Hang on, Mike. Brian, I was going to send you a text, but I did it in front of everybody, so I was out of line with what I said, and I apologize. So the horse thing, I deserved what I said to you. You didn't. So,
thank you.
I apologize.
Appreciate you doing that.
Out of line.
Tim, you can edit that out because I want Aaron to look as evil as possible.
This is a weird moment.
No,
it's a weird moment.
It's Brian. Yeah. Brian, it's fascinating that to know that Brando didn't really learn his lines, because his lines are almost everything he says in this movie is just so well put. I mean, it's not just regular lines. It's almost poetic, just the way he speaks. It's hey, like the scene where he's sitting there with Tom. Tom's having the drink, and he's like, well, why don't you tell me what everybody already seems to know? And he's like, oh, I have to have a drink first. And then he sits it down. He goes, now you've had your drink. It's just it's just so poetic, the way that Brando delivers these lines, the way these lines are written. I don't know, but it's God, that's fascinating to know that.
The other one that I really think he just came through as fabulous actor was the scene with the butcher at the beginning. I believe he was the butcher, or was he the guy
Baker.
who wants him to
Enzo,
kill
the Enzo, the Baker.
Enzo, sorry. Candlestick, whatever. But he was like, you've never treated me like a friend. You've never called me Godfather. And he's basically telling him.
I'm sorry, that's not the baker. That's the funeral guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he does go to him.
Yeah, Enzo was the baker.
Enzo was the one that actually helped him at the hospital.
Right. No, but he's just he's telling him politely, this is what you need to do. Show me respect. Call me Godfather. Ask me to be your friend. And he's like, Godfather, he just does everything he just told him to do.
When he finally kisses his hand, it's almost like I think he says, there it is.
Yeah. Well, and that scene is so great. He's like, one day, maybe it'll never come. I'll come to you and I'll ask for you a favor. And that fucking comes around.
Will do that favor.
That character's name is Amerigo Bonacera, by the way. Amerigo Bonacera.
Oh, yeah. And Brando slapping Johnny Fontaine.
That's great.
That was
be a man.
That was ad lib. That was ad lib too.
Was it really?
Yeah. Yep. So
great line. It's a great line too. You can act like a man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. Hilty, you were saying earlier, you asked the question about favorite reference. Specifically, obviously, The Simpsons has a million of them. I love the Krusty the Clown college thing, where they're riding the little bike together, and as Homer's head's hitting the glasses, it does the theme. They ring in the theme. And then just The Sopranos, and how all the characters love that movie and they keep quoting the movie to each other and then arguing over the quotes. But as far as lines, I think the ones that stick out to me are just like, I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse, and just that whole like scene. There's so many like iconic lines just from that scene that you're talking about, Brian, where he's in there talking to him, and they like that. There's a lot from there.
Mine is a Modern Family. They do one where Phil is being a godfather and they're baptizing a baby, and they just his kid comes out and is taking care of stuff for him, and yeah, where Phil is all of a sudden like Godfather-esque, Michael Corleone. That was really good. And the James Caan doing Bada Bing, that obviously took a life of its own after he did that, and pretty much every gangster movie at some point has Bada Bing Bada Boom in there
For sure.
So
I want to throw this out there. We brought Luca Brasi up a few times. Actually, I'll wait until my thing at the end about that. But what is everybody's favorite either character or performance in this movie? I mean, I suppose Brando's probably got to be the performance, right? But like, does anybody have his particular character and just like why, like maybe outside of Vito, just or if it's Vito, whatever. What's everybody's favorite character?
I love Sonny Corleone.
That makes sense.
Just the
That
quick
shock me.
anger. Yeah,
That makes a lot of sense. I like Michael Corleone for.
I have nothing to add.
I heard he got divorced. I heard he got divorced a few times. Love that guy.
I like Clemenza.
Clemenza's great.
Yeah,
I like Clemenza.
I gotta go with Fish. Tessio. Isn't that Fish? Isn't he Fish in
Yeah.
okay.
Barney Miller.
I was like, holy shit, I could be way wrong
Yeah,
again.
no, you're right.
Mike, Barney Miller was a show that was on TV.
It was
A
during Hilty's
procedural
time, but
comedy
probably
cop
too
drama.
early for you.
again, Hilty is 2 years older than I am.
And he knows so much more. It's amazing.
He's
Well,
worldly.
he's spent a lot more time watching movies and TV than I have, so
That's true for all of us.
which comes in
It has
handy in a group
nothing
like
to do
this.
with age. Yeah.
Tim, you're go ahead and bring us home here.
All right.
You're not going to
So,
spin the wheel?
Yeah, it's not necessary.
There's you can't when there's only one choice left.
Bullshit.
My notes are going to be somewhat out of order, but first of all, I've heard in a Netflix series there's a conspiracy theory coming out that Francis Ford Coppola and Martin Scorsese are the same person. Next,
Tim, talking to the mic.
The pop culture reference that I have is embarrassing, but what I can't watch this movie without thinking about is Tom Hanks and You've Got Mail giving Meg Ryan advice from The Godfather. Go to the mattresses and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This is the first time I've watched this movie, though, and understood the go to the mattresses phrase. I knew that's a famous phrase from the movie, but when they're going to kill Paulie, they're in the car on the way to killing Paulie with the famous line, leave the gun, take the cannolis. On the way out there,
which is on Brian's quote board this week.
Oh, is that what's okay? I can't
And
see.
Clemenza ad-libbed it.
Did he really? That's
Yep.
great.
Oh, that's great.
But in the car on the way there, he says, hey, I want you to go get a whole bunch of mattresses and make sure they're clean mattresses. Go to the mattresses means literally bring 20 mattresses over to the house because everybody's living here from now on. And that's how we're fortifying our residence. I didn't know that. Like, I didn't get that until I watched it this time around. So that's put me in the category of I should have noticed that before.
I learned that from the book before I watched the movie. Well, I suppose.
Come on, horses, and mattresses. Jesus Christ!
But as far as the meaning of that, like it took me reading the book before I watched, because I admit there are several things in this movie I would not have gotten if I didn't read the book first. And that was one of them, because they explain in the book, they're like, this is what going to the mattresses means. So no, I get it. Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
There's some points in this movie where you're led to believe that Vito is getting old and he's missing some steps, but there's also some points in here where Vito is the sharpest person in this movie, and I love that. I love Vito Corleone's character because you don't know what you're gonna get. And it just keeps delivering throughout the movie. His death is absolutely precious. Playing with his grandson, and I'm assuming a stroke or a heart attack in the vineyard.
Heart attack. Yeah.
If you're gonna go out while just having fun, putting orange slices in your mouth and having fun with your grandson. I just think that's a really precious moment. Um, the next thing I have is for me, there's only two moments where Vito is actually stepping up as the leader, not only of the family, but the five families. And the first one is in his office during the wedding, where there can be no mistake who's in charge of everything in this movie at that point. And then also when he's talking to Michael about the major plan, like he kicked it into overdrive and he and Michael worked out this plan, and it's fucking awesome. I mean, you have to fill in the blanks in between, but those are two moments where you get the Vito Corleone, like this is how you got here in the first place. Um, this movie's called The Godfather, and very frequently you look at all of the posters, The Godfather is a picture of Marlon Brando. But at the end of the movie, Michael becomes the Godfather and then becomes the Godfather. And I love I don't know if you would call it symbolism, but I just love how they rebrand the concept of the Godfather for the end of the movie. Um, the name of the movie makes perfect sense with the passage to the youngest, and well, let's be honest, the youngest is always the best son. Um, the One of the reasons what I would say that people call this the best movie ever made is the epic nature of it. Like Aaron's talking about it. This takes 10 years, and you don't get to just sit here and figure out where it's going to go in the first 15 minutes. Like you have to invest, and this movie pays off. So I think that's really cool. Kay as a character also bothers me. I don't even understand why she's in this movie other than to give a side of Michael's personality. Um, she's not a character that I necessarily care about. All of the other characters I literally am invested in, but her. And I think she's only there just to sort of say something about Michael's personality and role in the movie. I do think it's weird. This is one scene. We were talking about another scene earlier that was a little off. It was Sonny beating the shit out of Carlo. There's this other scene where they come out after Vito gets shot. They come out and they're just having this nice conversation. And it's like, hey, would you like me if I was a nun? Would you like me if I was, I forget the actress? And then somehow she just notices an article in the newspaper and says, hey, come look at the newspaper. It's just a weird editing thing that's awkward. But then for me, and maybe this is Aaron's thing with how much time goes by. Like, how did a newspaper article come out before Michael heard about his father getting shot while they were watching a show?
I was going to bring this up in New York, you might get at least two, maybe three newspapers a day on a special. There would be an afternoon edition, a morning edition, and an afternoon edition. So news traveling very fast. I think maybe Brian said, there wasn't cell phones or what, maybe you didn't know. I want to say within a half a day or whatever, it's in the paper, that the Don
I'll take
got
that.
whacked.
I'll take that as a, but it just didn't. Maybe if you're watching this movie in the early 70s, that makes sense. But just watching it right now, it seemed odd. I did have, and I think Mike just asked this a minute ago. I think Brando and Pacino are just untouchable in this movie. Like those performances are so fucking good. And this cast is incredible. And the question I was going to ask was, take those two out of it, who do you think played the best role? And I've got James Caan and Diane Keaton and Robert Duvall and Talia Shire. And then I have a combo of the guys who played Luca Brasi and Clemenza. But I don't even know if I want you guys to answer that. But just thinking about how good the acting was in this movie and what another level those two dudes were on. My God, the one thing that I had about Pacino was his eyes. That dude acts with his eyes better than just about anybody else. He's got, once he starts taking control, he's got this dead stare where when he's looking at you and delivering a line, he's not even looking you in the eye. He's just saying it. And this is what it is. And this is how it's going to go. And he doesn't have that earlier. And Brian, you brought this up when he's about to shoot the cop and what's his name?
McCluskey.
That's the cop.
That's the cop. The other
Salazzo.
Palazzo.
Salazzo. His eyes are shifting quite a bit in that scene. And that is the only time in this movie where his eyes shift. And that's the giveaway that he's going through any kind of panic, because the rest of that movie, before and after, he is locked in. And Pacino acting with his eyes is really incredible. And that's not the only movie he does that. So two last things. Carlo's death and Michael saying to Kay, I had nothing to do with it. I have a takeaway on this on my own. Maybe I'm on my own on this. I don't think Michael necessarily ordered the death. I think he said to Clemenza, well, he implied the death. Let me put it this way. I think he went to Clemenza and said, so Carlo's the one that got Sonny killed. I'm going to send Carlo on a plane ticket and I'm going to put you in the back seat. You do what you got to do. And then Clemenza went, got it, boss. Kills him. And then Michael can say to Kay, I didn't do it. I had nothing to do with this at all.
So when Micah came out of the house and watched it happen,
but he didn't order it. It's not that he watched it.
He didn't go, whoa, hey, Clemenza, stop.
I think he might be, he uses loopholes strategically for the police, but
just like Tom does.
I don't think he was worried about it for his wife.
Okay, that's fair. That's what I got. I had another one. I had a really
and that's what makes like that kind of world, I think, intriguing and titillating to us civilians is just because. So say what you were saying, Clemenza's not going to do that without 100% knowing that he's supposed to do it.
Yes.
Don't make a mistake like that, because I mean, well, I thought maybe you wanted him dead. Well, I didn't. So now we're going to kill you. So,
Well, on our last,
you're having a drink and a guy's behind you in a car going for a ride.
On our last day of school, our principal always does this. This meeting's supposed to go to 1 p.m., but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in my office, and I'm not coming out of my office until after 1 p.m. You guys do whatever you got to do. That's what I'm saying happened there. He's got plausible deniability in the murder of Carlo.
So yeah, no, this is great. Great takes from everybody. I still actually have another question on this too. So yeah, so one thing I love about this, it's a small thing, but I love the Godfather font. Like that is a very specific font that they use for the title, and it's been, recreated for, it's been parodied. But that is a very specific thing. Music's fantastic. Casting is fantastic. Acting is fantastic. I mean, everybody's fantastic. He's great at this. Brando and Pacino especially are outstanding. There was one, so I wrote down early because, like Aaron said earlier, I started taking notes and I just kind of stopped and just watched the movie. Very early on, I just wrote, Michael, why are you telling her everything? Because, like, at that point, they're not married. He's just like, yeah, so that guy over there, Luca Brasi, he held a gun to somebody's head. And it's like, wait, what? Like, there are FBI guys right out there. Like, but that was kind of the last, like, plot-related note that I wrote. A lot of the other stuff we've already kind of been over. I mean, there are parts of this that I think are still very, very suspenseful. Like the whole hospital scene when it's just Michael and everybody's, been abandoned and you're like, oh, they're coming for him. They're going to come to kill him. That's very suspenseful. And they they really, they did that really, really well. In the Luca Brasi obviously is an interesting character, and I think it's pretty clear that he's very, very loyal to Vito Corleone. They like Tom says it at one point where it's like, hey, like even if this works out, even if this works out, even if you get everybody else to back off, you'll never be able to stop Luca Brasi. Like even we can't stop him. You don't really see it much in this movie, but when you read the book, they go really into Luca Brasi, and he's a freaking monster, but he is exactly that. He is just the absolute most loyal to Vito Corleone. He's Vito's most loyal, attack dog, just mostly, he trusts him to do the absolute worst things he needs to do. It's just, and that loyalty is literally just never questioned. Like there's nobody more loyal than Luca Brasi.
There's one thing about that character that's a little weird for me is like Tom even says, like, how are you going to stop Luca Brasi when they have him kidnapped? And the thing is, like, bullets stop big guys too. Like, there's a lot of bullets being traded here, and they're like, how are you going to stop the big guy? And it's
Well,
almost as if,
okay.
well, bullets can't stop him. He's just going to get you anyway. Like,
I don't think that's what that meant, because they were trying to work it out in a peaceful way. And so they're trying to get Michael and Sonny and everybody to agree to some kind of peaceful terms because they had him kidnapped.
okay,
But like
all right,
it
I'll
didn't
take that.
matter if even the family members did it, they're not going to be like Luca's not going to be, yeah, even if they all agree to just let the shooting of Vito go, Luca would never do that because he's so loyal to Vito Corleone
Okay,
that if
I'll
somebody
take
shoots
that.
Vito Corleone, he is going to kill them. It does it it wouldn't have, it could have been probably his own kids. If his own kids had taken him out, he would have gone after his own kids. Like it's just that's the level of loyalty you have. So there's something really interesting in that I wanted to point out in this book, and this is something that actually really really helped me understand the movie as I was watching it back when I was a lot younger and a lot dumber. Um, Albert Neary, they don't really name him in this movie. I think he might have a part in part two, like by name. I've only seen part two once, and I only really remember, De Niro in Italy, and then how part two ends. Um, but Neary, I don't think is really mentioned by name in this. He's the guy that dresses up like a police officer at the end, and he's the one that takes out Barzini.
Okay.
Now, if I had been watching this without having read the book, the first time I would have watched this, that part I might have been, I feel like I would have been kind of confused by. Like, okay, I get that they're taking out all these, top mob guys, but I just kind of, it's kind of a throwaway thing. It's like, okay, Barzini gets just killed by some cop, and it's just that, like, wait, why is the cop doing? Oh, I guess he's, it kind of makes you put it together. But in the book, there's this great thing, Tim, you're talking about how like we miss out on hours of conversation from Vito and
Yeah.
Michael. There, I mean, Vito's coaching them for I don't remember if it's months or years, but he's his consigliere, and I mean they go into a lot of detail in the book on just Vito teaching Michael all the ropes and filling in all those gaps. And one of the things that Vito teaches him is how to make a Luca Brasi, how to make somebody that's going to be,
Oh, okay.
that is willing to do the most heinous things for you, that will have the most unquestioned loyalty. That, somebody that's undyingly loyal, the unconditionally loyal kind of thing. And so they go in they go into Neary's story, like as a cop and what happens to him, and then like how, Michael kind of gets involved and helps him out. And basically, like, because of what Michael does for him to help him out of, however it is, well, then Neary's willing to, it's like, okay, kind of okay, well, now you can do us a favor. And so that's how, the way Michael takes out Barzini, the top dog, his top competition,
Mhm.
is by creating a new Luca Brasi. And that's they didn't really go into this in the movie, and like I would have loved if they had, because I think that part's fascinating, but it's also 3 hours.
Well, it was
There
already
are a
three
lot of
hours.
things
That's
that
what I
would
was
have been
gonna, yeah.
cool. Yeah. There are a lot of things that would have been cool if they included, but this movie can't be 6.5 hours long, So like I get it, and I don't think it takes away from the movie that it's not in there, but it's just it's a very interesting thing for me, and just was very like, again, it helped me understand what I was watching when I saw this the first time.
They did show how he kind of like he like drops to a knee and focuses his gun and in order to make that shot, and nobody else really had that kind of accuracy or intent while
Mhm.
shooting. Everybody else just pointed a gun and shot. So there's a little
Yeah.
bit of, hey, this guy knows how to kind of marksman shoot a gun kind of thing, but
Right.
that's
But
all you get
again,
out of
he's
him.
just it looks like he's just a button guy. He's just some guy in the family that's,
Mhm.
where like Clemenza very clearly is somebody that matters, that, takes the guys out in the elevator. But yeah, I don't know. That part, I just wanted to share that because that part's fascinating to me. That character is fascinating to me. Especially just with that relation to Luca Brasi and how important Luca is to Vito. And that's the thing. I don't know if they really portray that in the movie, just how important Luca is to what Vito's doing and just to Vito keeping the order. He's wise, he's very sharp, and he's respectful and everything. But the other thing is he is also ruthless, and Luca is such a big part of that. The other thing, just regarding the book and the movie, in the book is the entire scene. It's like a 30-page thing on Vito going back to Italy, which is, a big part of part two.
Mhm.
So like Godfather the book covers one and two, or at least parts of two. Which I don't know. I just enjoyed that. But that leads me into just my last question for the group and just open discussion before we actually wrap it up here. We brought it up a little bit last week. Which one's better? Part one or part two? Or if somebody wants to be weird and say part three, I guess try and make your argument. Go ahead. But part one or part two, what are we thinking and why?
After rewatching one with intent, I'd have to watch two with intent to
Mhm.
give an honest answer.
That's
Because
fair.
I've always said two. But like right now where I sit, I'd say one. Just because I think I've paid more attention to two. I saw it first when I was older.
Mhm.
So
I'll just say this as a credit to how good this movie is. I really had to fit this in this week, and it's a 3-hour movie, and I actually wish that I could have watched part two before we started this conversation. Like I love this movie that much, and I know how good part two is, but I think I'm siding with Aaron here. I think one, because it's the foundation. It's just done so
Yeah.
well. Um, Two is outstanding though. Like it's just a tough question, but I think I would land on one.
I'm the same. I haven't seen two in literally over a decade or more, so I'd have to go back and watch. I almost watched it, but it was like midnight when I finished this one, so I was like, I probably should go to bed. So I do want to watch two again.
Yeah.
What's your pick this week?
you could make me watch it
Brian,
tonight.
Brian or Hilty, what do you guys think?
I don't. This is going to be terrible to say in this group, but I don't remember a time where I've sat down and watched two beginning to end.
Ooh.
So I can't say two.
Okay.
That's enough reason for somebody to pick that movie in this round.
Yeah,
I'm
maybe like
I'm
the
the
next guy.
I'm the week after. I'm the week after. So
Okay.
I might have to, so next week I might have to do this from my phone in the airport. So that'll be fun. Anyways, Hilty, thoughts?
I refuse to answer your question because no, you can't pick between the two. They're that good to like again, I would encourage anyone if you do have 9 hours handy, um just if you could just watch like the whole thing cut in like chronological order, um it's
Is that
actually
what
a
comes
pretty
up as? So when I ordered this, does it come up as like Scorposio or something like that? Like, does it have its own name?
I think it
I
does.
didn't take a picture of it, but it was like suggested next, and it was it was The Godfather, but it was red, but it had like some Italian name under it.
I
Scorsese.
believe I believe.
The complete epic, maybe. Uncut, uncensored.
Well, I would have been able to read that.
Yeah.
Chronological order. That'd be really interesting to watch. I definitely have never even seen that as an option. That'd be fun to watch.
Well, and there was a
It's-
mini series, right?
And see, it might have been that was a suggestion.
Mm.
But while people are kind of looking at, like, when you guys watched it, Brian, you said you watched it on Paramount. So
Yes.
did I. So I had subtitles for when Michael was in Italy and they were speaking Italian, but I didn't have subtitles when they were in America speaking Italian. Did
Right.
anybody? Is that a version of anybody? Because
I got that a lot too.
Yeah.
okay, because I really
think they did that on purpose.
Yep, the restaurant scene when Michael shoots the cop in Salazzo, I can't remember his name.
Salazzo.
You don't get any translation on that. There you just have to get respect and father, and then he shoots
right.
him.
And it's very cool. I get it.
Mhm.
But where I really wanted it, where it first came up, is I wanted to know what the mom and maybe the super old uncle were singing at the wedding.
Mm.
Because it seemed hilarious. And I was like, I wonder what they're singing.
Yeah.
Because it had to be dirty or something.
The old man was singing
I
something.
mean, it
dirty.
looked like he was. Yeah, it looked like he was making motions like it was dirty.
Bada bing. It wasn't bada bing. Sorry, our Italian listeners.
If you're
Yeah,
putting a
you know-
Wilden, if you're putting a gun to my head though, I do like the second one, maybe just like a sliver better. That's
That's
Okay.
what critics
that's
say.
it. It's that close,
Mhm.
but
They're so different. They're so differently great.
You get De Niro, right?
you get De Niro instead of Brando, which it's still a great performance, but God, Brando is just so good
Yeah.
in this.
It pisses me off to know that he was reading cue cards. I have to say that.
Right.
I mean, that feels very on brand for him though, because he's such an asshole, but he's great at what he does. Unfortunately,
I go ahead.
I was just gonna say, also on Paramount, they do a new version of the third movie. It's actually has a quote from the director of The Godfather Coda: "The death of Michael Corleone provides an entirely new experience. I created a new beginning and ending. The picture has been given new life." Martin Scorsese.
Brought it all
Interesting.
together.
Wow. That was a journey, Brian. That was a
Thank you.
journey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So when I
Is it
looked this
real,
up,
Did you ad lib that?
No, they literally have it, but it says Coppola.
so
I thought it was a quote from like his buddy, like he
No.
watched it like a what do you call it in a book, like the foreword or whatever. It was written by
Again, I don't make fun of you guys.
that's
Bullshit.
false. So, so on Rotten Tomatoes, when I first looked at this, I was just curious, and got part 1 has 97%, part 2 has 96%. That's not like a one is better than the other. That just goes to show how iconic both of these movies are.
and that somebody was padding their numbers tonight.
I have to, well, I mean, if you put this together with the Winnie the Pooh thing, it averages out into a just mediocre movie. So
69.
yeah, it's not really helping me all that much. But I don't know. I have a soft spot for part 1 just because of I remember like where I was and like how I experienced that whole thing. Part 2, I just watched sometime and I don't remember that well. I don't really remember the movie that well. So I do have to go back and watch part 2, and maybe I'll decide that part 2 is better. I don't know. But even if it is, I think I've had this conversation with people on Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul before. And I know Better Call Saul is a prequel. And yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that Better Call Saul is better, and that might be the case, but I also don't think Better Call Saul, and I don't think Godfather Part 2 are really going to be as good as they are without part one, or as without Breaking Bad, in Better Call Saul's case. If that was just a standalone show, I don't think it's still good, but I don't think it's as good as if it had all the Breaking Bad lore to back it up. Just the same with part two. Um, and I'm not saying one is better than the other. That to me, that's always an interesting conundrum when you're talking about like, hey, this movie that's within the same universe, is it better or worse than the previous? The only one I can really think of that I think is pretty straightforward, but I'd love to hear you guys disagree on this. Would be I think Empire's probably
Okay.
the best of the
That's gotta
original
come up.
trilogy from Star Wars, but
Agreed.
Everybody agrees with you on that.
Yeah,
That's
you
not
get
a hot take.
right. But okay, fair enough. But I didn't think it was a hot take. I just wasn't sure.
I just want to be
Here's the thing,
topical.
but
for the same reason
fair
though.
enough.
You don't have to do the setup for Empire Strikes Back because it's
Right.
already been set up. So you
Right.
can have that movie be as outstanding as it could possibly be. And Godfather 2 is the same way. You
Right.
don't
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to do
You
the
can't
setup.
have Saul without Breaking Bad. It doesn't
Right.
exist.
Right.
Right.
So
There's something to be said about a show that like has a whole bunch of lore to build up. Dark Knight, same thing. Dark Knight, I mean, Dark Knight can stand alone, but I remember a friend of mine once said that some idiot was telling him like, "Oh, I didn't like the Dark Knight because they didn't go enough into his ninja stuff." And I was like, they had an entire movie. Like the last movie was
Yeah.
all about that. We don't need the ninja stuff. And I mean, I guess Dark Knight probably stands alone, but it's still like this. You have this lore to build on. You know who Batman is. You know what he's doing. Um,
well, and to your point, I think if I was to watch Godfather 2 tonight, and I might because I have nothing to do tomorrow. When I watch it tonight, I'm probably gonna like it better because I've just seen one.
Yeah.
So it might beat one just because I just watched one. And it's
right.
gonna add to it and make me feel, nostalgic for 3 days ago. And it's gonna give me the
Yeah.
feel.
When it's a
I just think it. Go ahead.
when it's a serialized story like this, it's a bit of a tougher thing, a tougher question to ask. A question like that might be better suited for maybe let's say like Raiders of the Lost Ark versus Last Crusade. Like which one
Mhm.
do you like a little bit better? Because they both have they both have awesome moments. They both have awesome character. Like sure, if you want to throw in Temple of Doom or those other two that we don't speak of, you could if you wanted, but they're not all none of those stories are dependent upon each other, but I don't know, some of that context does help a little bit,
Right.
especially with the later ones. So when
Which
it's a
is, I guess, more kind of like Dark Knight too. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know, like you need a lot of that stuff in the dark. You need some of that stuff in Batman Begins in order to understand some of the crap that he went through in the Dark Knight. And
Agreed.
like even more
Yeah.
so in the Dark Knight Rises, where you're super dependent on Batman Begins in order for you to like fully understand what's going on.
On both of them, on Batman Begins and Dark Knight. It like Dark Knight Rises depends on that. Anyway, yeah, you're right. It's probably better suited. I mean, we could have that discussion for okay, as far as movies that are considered the greatest of all time at the top of that list. You could maybe go Godfather versus Citizen Kane or Godfather. Maybe that's an easier question, but I'm only asking because that's the question that always comes up. That's the discussion that always comes up so many times. Like, oh, well, part two is better versus part one. Could this be the greatest movie of all time if part two is better? That was the question. That was what somebody said last week. And it's just, I'm not saying it's almost not answerable, but I don't know. I wanted to throw that out there. Thank you guys. This was awesome. Fun discussion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, glad you guys enjoyed it as well. I mean, enjoyed the movie too. So
Kind of just to put a bow on what you were just saying, what Hilty was saying. So it's almost not even fair to compare one to anything else. You almost could only, one's always got to be one. And then you could compare 2 and 3 or 2 and 4, or so, because even in Indiana, in that first movie, you still learn a lot about his background. He's a teacher, or professor, whatever. So, like, if you want to do Doom versus Crusade, or Empire Strikes Back versus Return of the Jedi, that's, I think, more of a fair comparison, because then you get one and it's off on its own and it's not in the conversation. But
don't have to do the setup, right?
Yeah, because everything after that first one, the characters, the background, what you're in for, why you're there. So there's a lot of love they don't have to build up in the first. They don't have to waste 30 minutes on it.
Well, geez, even in the different renditions of Spider-Man, there's 3 different actors that have played Spider-Man over the last 25 years. And, everybody was raving about Tom Holland's in Homecoming. And I mean, of course, I think he does a great job, but also we've seen this movie twice, but we've seen the whole origin story of getting bit by the spider and everything twice before. So even Tom Holland's first Spider-Man, he doesn't have to go, yeah, okay, I got bit by the spider, I'm Spider-Man. Let's go now. We all know the story. And that's, I don't know, there's something to be said about it. But on the other hand, there are a lot of times where sequels are not as good within that superhero realm, since Dan's not here. Iron Man, for example. Iron Man 1 is, I think, exceptionally better than the other 2. So, it depends. Anyway, anybody have anything else on Godfather before we're done with that? I know Aaron tried to put a bow on that and I ruined it. My apologies.
It's your bow to have.
Matt Smith, it is your turn to make a pick for this theme that goes a movie that we should have already seen as a movie group.
Yeah, I am not picking the
Before
sequel,
he picks, is Godfather 2 on the list?
Yeah,
Have
Empire Strikes Back. Like, where are we going here? Ghostbusters.
Pick a Scorsese movie. Pick a Scorsese movie.
What's funny is,
Hilty, I hate you so much.
When
Hang
Tim
on,
first announced,
You should hate yourself for saying it, man. Like,
the mute. When Tim first announced the category,
Right.
I wrote down 6 movies, like, right away. Godfather was one of them, and I'm not gonna pick it, but Goodfellas was another one, which is a Scorsese movie, obviously. So I am not gonna pick either of those. So obviously I can't pick The Godfather. That was dumb. Anyway, I am going to pick. Actually, we mentioned it last week, and I'm picking it mostly out of my list of 6. I've seen 5 out of the 6, and I haven't seen this one, so I decided I should pick it. I have never seen Raging Bull, so I'm picking Raging Bull. We talked about it a little bit last week. It was already on my list, but since I haven't seen it, I figured if it's a movie that as a group we should have seen by now, I feel like that's kind of on theme. So
I'm gonna admit it. I have never seen Raging Bull.
It's adjacent to Godfather in many ways. So
a little
you're
bit.
picking a legit Scorsese movie. So cool.
Love that. So I haven't seen it either. Has anybody else not seen it?
I've never
I have not
seen
seen
it.
it.
Oh, sweet.
This is
Oh,
great.
look, Mike Hilty's seen it.
Of course I've seen it. This is
No,
he muted himself. I did not do that. He did it himself. I noticed throughout the evening he would do stuff like say Scorsese and then not say anything. So if I muted him, it wouldn't matter. Like he put his hands up and like went back away from the microphone. I saw what you
knew what he was
doing.
Do it.
Yeah, Raging Bull is on Max.
There it is.
Raging Bull is on.
Oh, awesome.
So those of you who have that.
I can't believe I've made it this far in life, and we've gotten through almost 200 movies, and I had another movie group, and I've never seen this movie.
Yeah, me too, man.
It's I'm embarrassed.
You shouldn't be embarrassed because this is a pretty heavy movie, and also it's, I don't know, like it's kind of interesting because boxing movies in general, that's probably like the one sport that has been kind of done really well in a lot of movies. and it's hard to kind of stand out, especially in the face of things like, oh, I don't know, Rocky, right after this. But plus, also in the pantheon of Martin Scorsese movies, it sucks that this one doesn't get mentioned as much as some of the other ones. But um, I don't know. I would put this on par with his other movie, Apocalypse Now.
Hmm.
That was directed by Francis Ford Coppola. So
Yep. Yeah. Just
no, we got
sit
it.
there in your silence. Sit there.
You
in
got
your
everybody
silence,
scared
Guilty.
now.
Yeah.
I believe there's
Who did what?
I believe there's a in the scene where Vito gets shot at the fruit stand, I think there's a boxing advertisement. I have to go back and look. I think I read this. I didn't see it. I read it, and it's Jake Hilty would
LaMotta.
know. Yeah, LaMotta. It's Jake LaMotta. So thought that was interesting too. There is a
That's cool.
Oh, that's
there's
nice.
your connection.
kind of a connection there.
So Aaron, you were saying earlier that Godfather was on TV all the time, so you watched it a lot. But some of the movies that are kind of famous have always been on. I don't remember ever seeing Raging Bull
Me either.
on.
No.
Like maybe that's the reason I haven't seen it. I don't remember seeing it. Like HBO is just playing Raging Bull, so maybe I should tune in. Like it's just not.
Question: Is Raging Bull older than Godfather?
No, I think
No,
it's
it's around
It's
80, 79, 80 or something like that, I think.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things for me. I always think it's way older, because it is black and white, and
Right.
it's, I don't know, I've just never seeked it out. When I was like, oh, what should I watch? So
80.
No,
Yeah.
Brian, we switched, so the next one would be your pick, right?
Correct.
It would be hilarious if you pick Scarface.
Can we watch it?
No, we haven't
Oh.
watched Scarface.
I've watched it in the past
It's
year.
okay.
Oh, and anyway,
All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week when we talk about Raging Bull.
That'll do it for this episode of the BTB Movie Club podcast. Thank you as always for listening. We know we enjoyed ourselves. We hope you did too. Have yourself a great week. We are partnered with the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.